Well, now that we're rounding the corner from late March into early April, allergy season is upon us. And if you're anything like me, it seems like they've hit a little earlier than usual this year. Thanks for tuning into the Climate Friday newsletter. Good to have you here, whether it's on the WTOL 11 YouTube page or on WTOL 11 Plus. So we're going to answer some of those pressing questions pertinent to spring allergies and how this allergy season may fare compared to past years. Will it be a bad one? Will we see allergies last longer into the fall? I'm going to break down some of the data and the science explaining allergy season and some of the weather factors that impact just how bad the allergies may be. So let's dig into some of the data on spring allergies and what you can anticipate as we round the corner from March into April. Now, some of the factors that dictate allergy season begin in the winter. For the last several months, we've already been setting the stage for the allergy season that's going to take shape over the coming months. Allergy season generally starts earlier on in the year nowadays than it used to, say 30, 50, 100 years ago, and part of that has to do with warmer winter weather. We are seeing an increase in how early the spring bloom occurs, and warmer winters mean an earlier allergy season. That is something that you've likely noticed in the last few years, is that allergy season seems to come a little earlier than it used to. We are seeing a warming trend in 12 months out of the year. In March, that has been noteworthy, a 1.6 degree uptick in temperatures, and that is in the last decade alone in Toledo. The latest climate data shows us that there's a significant increase in those temperatures. Now, as I mentioned, even winter temperatures can help allergy season come on earlier than it normally would. December is the month that has been affected the most by climate change, with a 3+ degree warming trend in the last decade alone. We are on pace to continue that trajectory over the coming years and decades. So what's the science behind this allergy season, and how does the weather play a role? We are seeing an earlier and earlier spring bloom, and that irritates those allergies earlier on in the year. When the bloom starts in March, well, the allergies start acting up in March as well. Even though traditionally really didn't have to deal with allergies until April, even May, we're starting to see an earlier bloom, and that causes allergies to become a bit worse a bit sooner in the year. Climate change is likely making for a worse allergy season and also an earlier onset to allergy season. Like I said, March is the new April when it comes to starting to feel those symptoms aggravate you earlier on in the year. We are noticing that the data shows a huge uptick and a huge increase in the number of mild days that we have. One of the biggest factors that impacts how long the allergy season is known as the growing season. We have seen a plus 45 degree day trend. You can see that line starting off in 1970 and skyrocketing up to 2022. In other words, what that means is, and farmers know all about growing season, but if you're not familiar, it has to do with the number of consecutive days above freezing. The growing season lasts as long as that freeze-free period does. In other words, it lasts from spring, summer into autumn. We are seeing way more days without a freeze, and that allows some of those allergens to propagate and become more widespread earlier on in the year. I want to show you nationwide the trend that climate change has caused. Those green dots that you see across Ohio, Michigan, and much of the country's midsection, that shows you an elongation of the growing season. Across much of the eastern contiguous United States, the growing season is longer. That means the allergens are also growing for a longer duration of time. Now, to be fair, the effects are not felt uniformly. Some of those brown dots that you see across the northern Great Plains and the Rockies, the growing season has actually become a little bit shorter. So climate change doesn't affect everyone equally, but one thing's for sure, lots of green dots across the Great Lakes means a longer allergy season due to the longer growing season. And 45 days is significant because out of 365 in the year, 45 days represents about 12% of the entire calendar year. And since 1970, that is a tremendous increase. That means within the next 50 years, who knows, we'll tack on another 45 days to the growing season, and that could make those allergies act up even sooner. Now, the spring bloom is also correlated with allergy season, and folks across the southeast from North Carolina to Texas over towards the Gulf of Florida are seeing the earliest bloom they have ever recorded for parts of the southeast, and that was happening back in February, mind you. So that early bloom is also likely to occur in the Great Lakes and the Midwest as well. Here's a couple other weather factors and variables that impact the allergies. The humidity in the air is one of the biggest factors that can aggravate allergies, and humidity, stagnant air, it can cause bacteria and mold to grow. I'm sure you're familiar with this phenomenon. When the air is really thick and soupy outside and it's humid, that is the breeding ground for mold and bacteria, and some of those can aggravate your sinuses and your allergies as well. Now, grass pollen, that's not something we usually talk about this early, and that's more common during the summertime months when that grass is fully growing. Right now, it's still a little bit brown. That being said, our grass pollen is likely to be worse than usual. It's not going to peak until June, so we still have a couple months until that occurs, but once that summertime grass is growing, we are going to see some pollen and allergies acting up. Also, tree pollen, we got off to an early start this spring. Part of that has to do with the weather. We had a very mild winter into early spring, in part due to climate change, and also wetter than normal weather. Haven't you noticed how much rain we've gotten lately? It seems like it's one after another with storm systems, and that wet weather has caused an uptick and an increase in tree pollen. It's going to be slightly worse than normal across much of the country's midsection this year. Bottom line, an earlier start than usual with those spring-like temperatures, coupled with a mild winter and early spring, is going to make the allergy season off to an early start this year. Tree and grass pollen are both going to be worse than normal, so if you are a sufferer of those allergens, keep in mind this year could be worse than usual. Make sure to pack the tissues and go and see your allergist if you do have problems. A longer growing season, and not just longer, but significantly longer due to climate change, means a longer allergy season as well. And due to this elongation of the growing season and more days above freezing, we are seeing not only the earlier onset, but a longer duration of allergies. And that's something we'll continue to talk about in Climate Friday as summer and even fall unfolds, because by the fall, we are going to see those allergies lasting even longer into the latter half of the season. Now, it's still only late March. We still have some time before we reach the peak of those springtime allergies, and whatever weather Mother Nature doses out this season, seems like we often have a roller coaster of ups and downs in the springtime. We'll keep you updated here on the WTOL 11 weather app, on YouTube, and on WTOL 11+. I'll see you next Friday for the Climate Friday newsletter.